Okay, I think this thing is working. Um, Thank you very much, Audra, for letting me know that the first volume of my videos did not have sound. Um, I'm not really sure why that happened. I can see my little green bar with my microphone going, so um, I don't know. Technology is weird, and I obviously do not have anywhere near a mastery of it. Anyway, um, so given that these lectures are going to be really divergent, one was recorded a few days ago, the other one is recorded today. I have some notes as to what I said in the last one, but um, really it's going to be just much more of a conversation. And so here's the gist of it. Roughly where the positional is today is uh, is between two of the readings that I assigned for you for today. The first being Amelia Jones' Post-Feminism, and the second being the Susan Hiller Anthropology into Art. Now, I say that the positional exists in between these two writings because these two writings represent what happened to feminism after the idea of feminism, the idea of presenting a specific history for your political body as it exists in our society. So that was the launch of feminism. Just a female history, a female history, a female history, and that got spread out. Other groups co-opted that method. I'm speaking specifically of my own experience within the queer community, where even though I am a man, I have taken quite a bit of feminist critique and feminist discourse to heart when thinking about my own position in the world. And so, after these other marginalized groups take the course that feminism has put forth and make it their own, feminism went into a little bit of a tailspin necessarily. All of a sudden, this discourse that was very much specifically about the female body, the female experience, the female world, the female perspective in that world, after they see this being passed around, they get a little defensive. And Susan Hiller digests that and comes up with, I think, a very even keeled understanding, which is basically everyone has the ability to do what the feminists did with regard to their own positional politics. But that doesn't make anything that she does any less of a feminist gesture. It doesn't mean that feminism is dead. It doesn't mean, as Amelia Jones is arguing, that there is a remasculinization of culture. What Hiller is saying is that it's not surprising that other groups of people have taken this charge, that they have followed in suit and said, yes, we too are going to examine how our political group, how our individual bodies operate within the political system that we engage with. With. That was a weird sentence. My apologies. And so, in looking at a few specific terms that Hiller brings up, I want to help frame this. The first being marginality. Because marginality, if you talk to a feminist in 1969, somebody not as politicized as Valerie Solanas, but somebody kind of in that bracket, they would talk about marginality as being specifically a female issue. Men are not marginalized because we live in a masculine culture. Thinkers a few years later, like Gayatri Spivak, took that idea of marginality and went a few steps larger. Yes, it is women that are marginalized, but what about women of different communities, of different complexions, within different socioeconomic brackets? In what other ways can we define how someone is marginal? And so Susan Hiller, a generation or a few years after Gayatri Spivak, gives us this quote where she says that marginality, and actually the quote should go before marginality. Marginality means that you internalize two conflicting but sometimes overlapping sets of ideas about everything. I'm a marginalized person because as a woman in this culture, I do not have a female language. I am excluded from culture and from cultural traditions unless I speak as a man. Now, here you have an author, an artist, who is using the same language that Gayatri Spivak brings up, this idea of speaking, this idea of having the ability to speak. Now, yes, everybody has vocal cords. Everybody has the ability to flap their tongue around and make weird percussion-y sounds and form them into words, those words becoming language, having specific meanings. Yes, we all get that. Everybody can, quote unquote, speak. If you're going to nitpick me about people that don't have the ability to speak, please don't do that here. That can be for a conversation that we have while walking around the million galleries we're going to go to in New York City. Um, but politically speaking, not everyone has the same agency to speak. Now, here, speaking and agency are one and the same. If you have the ability to speak, you therefore have agency. If that agency or ability to speak is compromised by something like gender, sexual identity, race, socioeconomic class, that pushes you into the arena of marginality. How Hiller is describing marginality is she's making one group the group that everyone understands. And that group is sloppily white, heterosexual, Western men. I say sloppily because it's condescending to group people in any way. But that's kind of the master narrative of our culture. You have specifically land-owning men is probably the easiest way to describe it. And there, for hundreds of years, there were laws in place that decreed who could buy land, and generally it was white, heterosexual, Christian, married men in the Western world. It's different all over the place. But anyway, that group of people has the ability to speak 100%. That's because the rules for who can speak were written by that group. And anyone else who wants to speak has to first acknowledge that there is this group, that there is this master narrative, and then they have to realize where they are situated in relation to it. Marginality as a term outside of this conversation, it hinges on something being central. It's like the idea of the other. You cannot be an other unless you understand who you are the other against. Now, Gayatri Spivak brings this up early on in her article when she talks about the other as outside of the West. From the feminist perspective, other is anything that is not male. And by not male, they generally specifically mean not white, not heterosexual, not Christian, male. It's, you know, I mean, all of those things. Not, I said that backwards. My apologies. But basically, that is what is the center, and everything else exists on the within the margins. Now, a good thing to understand here is that everyone defines their own center and everyone defines their own marginality or their own fringes. There are certain things, there are certain discourses that each of us are comfortable with, but other people might not be comfortable with them. For instance, I have a more, well, I'm not going to give you any examples because I'm running short on time and I want to get through this. But I hope you get this. I hope that this becomes clear to you that, what is my center might not be your center. What is my positionality is certainly not going to be your positionality. And so, earlier, the earlier rhetoric of the feminist discourse is much, much more specific because they're fighting against an enemy that actually no longer exists because it's a system that's been broken down. And so it was much easier for them to say, we are one group, they are the other group. We are the women, they are the men. We do not have power, they have the power. But by the time Hillary is speaking, that has slid away a little bit. I mean, a little bit, fractionally. There's still a lot more we can do, but fractionally it has slipped away, and so it's not so easy for somebody to stand up and say, I am an outsider to that group of insiders. Instead, she maps this very vague statement that says, you know, when you understand that you are marginal, you understand that you are speaking in two different ways. You are speaking as yourself with your political positionality, but you are constantly in conversation with how that positionality butts up against the mainstream political group, that massive group. Now, that's generally where positionality is today. This idea that in fully understanding where you are in the world, you both understand that you have the ability to speak in a certain capacity, but you don't have the ability to speak in other capacities. And this goes both ways. Somebody might have the ability to speak in one arena and not the ability to speak in another arena, and it's not anymore based on the kind of normative power structures I was just talking about. At this point, and this is a conversation I had with quite a few of you on the phone, at this point in our political landscape, the idea of a political position is really where you personally are situated in the world. No one else on the planet can speak to your experiences. No one else on the planet has the ability to talk about your understanding of the world. And you don't have the ability to speak about anyone else's interaction with the world. What people are tipping toward, myself included, is an idea that everything is in fact individualized. We all have individual experiences, and those individual experiences factor into how we view the world, how we engage with the world, and in what arenas we feel comfortable speaking. It is not appropriate to speak for someone else in any capacity. It's weird and kind of awkward when two people sit down at a dinner table and one of the people says, "Oh, they're going to have the steak, I'm going to have the fish." Usually it's awkward because it's the man that's ordering for the woman, and the woman may or may not have a say in that conversation. And I'm using a really kind of antiquated example here, but that's what I mean. It's not appropriate for me to talk about what it feels like to be a female black artist from Detroit. I have no frame of reference there. I'm not going to write a critical essay on that perspective because it's not mine to have a conversation about. What I can do is I can compare my experience with that experience as best I understand, and I can bracket it the way that Gayatri Spivak does with quite a bit of external research. What does it mean when a woman of South Asian descent picks up the language of the Western philosophers to describe the position of South Asian women? Well, Spivak is very clear about it. She says outright that she has gone through these other systems, these Western schools, and has therefore distanced herself politically from the subaltern, which she defines as South Asian women, or women of the Indian subcontinent. She is not speaking for them because she can't. She has internalized a system that has examined and therefore basically bracketed the institutional structures that have kept those women out of conversation. And so when thinking about positionality and thinking about things like marginality and the idea of the other, it's really important to constantly think, is it okay for me to say these things? Do I have ownership over these words and these perspectives? And on that, the second video might make no sense with this, but enjoy.